Welcome to Truth for Our Time with your host, Tamara Scott.
And good day. Thank you so much for joining us. It's Wednesday. It's Hump Day. It's the middle of the week. And don't you just need a boost to get you on through that week and give you a hope to continue, especially after everything we're hearing with all the headlines, all the things happening, everything coming down between SCOTUS decisions, between United Nations decisions, the supposed deal with Iran that many have very concerning issues with. So we're so glad we can talk to you about this. And when I say Hump Day, that's for those of you who are following along live, watch the show or hear the show. You can tune in as well each Wednesday, 10 a.m. Central Time at www.webcastonelive.com, webcastonelive.com. If you're listening on radio, thank you for joining us on KTIA 99.3. Love having you along on your Sunday drive. Maybe you're home from church, maybe you're headed to the restaurant, maybe you're headed to the golf course, don't know, but glad you can join in. On this show, our purpose is to give you news that you can use that you often don't hear anywhere else, to give you help when the headlines hit home. And here's the deal. If God expects you to live through it, he's directed you how to do it. Now, you might be hearing some static. I'm hearing some momentum, some movement as well. We are on location. I'm in D.C. I was here for an interesting, wonderful conference, and I thought, why not just do the show remotely from the Concerned Women for America studio? And bless their hearts, they're good enough to just let me into the studio and work my way around here. My hope was to interview a couple of the folks right here from CWFA, and Mario Diaz is on vacation today, so we'll catch up with him another time. And as God would have it, I wanted to fit in someone from the CUFI conference, from the Citizens United for Israel conference, but I wasn't sure how to do it, and God worked the timing out. Tom McGovern is joining us. Tom McGovern is the state director for CUFI, Citizens United for Israel, in Iowa. Tom, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Tamara. Exciting day.
It is an exciting day, and I'll explain to our listeners, Tom as well is on the location. He's on remote by his cell phone because he's just leaving this CUFI summit as well. How long have you been involved with Citizens United for Israel?
Our time with CUFI goes back to, would be 2004, which is when Pastor Hagee had a founders meeting, and his office in San Antonio, Texas. He called together 400 leaders from around the country, 4 of which were from the Quad Cities. We had myself and 3 other pastors attend that initial leadership meeting, and that's when Pastor Hagee announced what the Lord had put on his heart in forming Christians United for Israel, which was designed to have a single voice in Washington, D.C. and around the world to represent a voice for Israel in the Christian community.
All right. And so, thankfully, his obedience, because that's an awesome task, and some of us might have just said, wow, that would never happen. I can't do that. But because he had the wisdom and the courage to do it, Tom, I believe yesterday, was perfect timing for us to be in Washington, D.C., because as many of our listeners know, John Kerry, our Secretary of State, has signed us into a deal with Iran. Many of our legislators, our congressional members, our Senate, U.S. senators have great concerns with this bill, as do many of us. We thought, you pointed out, it was 7:14. 2 Chronicles 7:14 tells us that if we will repent, call on his name, ask forgiveness for our sins, he will hear our prayers and heal our nation. So the timing was perfect, Tom McGovern, for us to be there in D.C. as we went and talked with congressional members about this bill. I was amazed at how many of them also had their own concerns beyond the talking points that we had with CUFI, Citizens United for Israel. But, Tom, let's go through some of those talking points. What are the concerns that we see with this deal, the Iranian deal?
Well, there's several issues. We can go for hours on this, but we wouldn't have time to cover all the details. But one of our concerns is the sanctions relief, and what this deal is willing to give up. If it goes through as written, there is the possibility of $100 to $150 billion of frozen Iranian assets being released back to the state. And our concern is that that will not go for humanitarian purposes. That will go to fund state-sponsored terrorism, which everyone knows Iran has a history and a tradition of being the world's largest sponsor of state terrorism. So, we don't want to see that happen. And if we provide them with this kind of funding, it gives them a tremendous windfall in exchange for something that is really worth next to nothing, and that is their word. They have a history of lying and cheating and not keeping their word, and until they demonstrate a change in attitude and behavior, we shouldn't provide any sanctions relief.
And in that $150 billion, that's their money that will be opened up. Is that what you're saying? Or is America giving them cash?
No, those are frozen assets.
Okay.
That have been frozen around the world because of the sanctions that would be released over a period of time, and there are monitoring systems in place that they would have to abide by. But again, there's when we look at history, the track record isn't good. So we
hear the sanctions were working.
Yes, they were. They were having a tremendous impact on the economy in Iran. We think that it would lead to changed behavior if they were allowed to work longer. But we certainly don't want to see these frozen assets released back to the state and have them go further the cause of terrorism.
Yeah, very seldom do bullies behave without someone forcing them to do so, and that's exactly what we're dealing with here. Let's go on to the second talking point, the inspection. This Iranian deal, does it allow us to go anywhere with inspections anytime?
No. One interesting point that President Obama made in his speech was that he said the inspections would take place as needed. And that leaves a pretty open-ended way to do the inspections. And we feel strongly that those inspections should be subject to anytime, anywhere. They should not be as needed. There should be no restrictions. There should be no warnings. There should be no timetables. They should be able to take place anytime, anywhere.
One of our speakers at CUFI talked about this. I can't remember who it was. It was one of the U.S. Senate members of the representatives. Was it Tim Scott? I can't. He just did such a fabulous job, but I can't remember if it was him. Said that this is a little bit like having company for Thanksgiving. Your house is prepared and you are ready. You've got the presentation forward. But it's different than having someone just stop in and catch you with your laundry on the couch, catch you when things aren't picked up. We know that they've been dishonest in the past, and so if we don't have this ability just to check, if they don't know we're going to stop in at any time, they have no reason to behave.
That's correct.
Okay, and I thank you for doing this show because I know you are headed to the airport, so I'm not sure how convenient this is for you, but thank you so much. If our listeners are hearing any noise, I appreciate you being able to take your time and devote to us. The third point was on the activity. Do we have a baseline? Do we even know where they're at right now with their nuclearization and their weaponization?
I'm sorry, Samara, I couldn't hear you.
So I just thanked you for doing this in the middle of your travel. I appreciate it. Do we have a baseline? Right now, the inspectors don't know what to look for, or they don't know what capabilities that Iran actually has. So we don't even have a baseline to know if they will be complying with our new obligations or not. That's one of our concerns with this Iranian deal as well.
Yeah, exactly. And, when we met with our 4 congressional representatives yesterday and 2 senatorial appointments, they all agreed that we don't have a baseline to draw from. And that makes it very difficult to have any accountability and stability moving forward.
Now, Tom, you mentioned our U.S. Senators, Joni Ernst, she replaced Harkin, U.S. Senator Joni Ernst and Senator Grassley. We also met with our 4 we didn't get to meet with Loebsack. His office was, his staff, Ashley, was able to meet with us and was just very attentive, but we did not get to meet with the congressman himself. However, we did meet with Congressman Blum, Congressman Young, and Congressman King. Did you notice a consensus amongst all of them? They all are concerned with this, and they hadn't seen but maybe a few pages of it at that point.
Yes. I would say that both senators and 3 of the 4 congressmen were definite that there would be modifications to the agreement. All of them agreed that they have not had time to read the. Some of them still did it off press.
I'm losing you a little bit. I'm sure our listeners may be too. I'm not sure if it's just the movement. I'm just losing you a little bit. I don't know. Are you hearing us okay, Tom?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Every so often I lose you, but I assume it's because you're so busy moving your luggage or whatever, so I can't thank you enough for doing this phone call on the run.
Okay, no problem. What I was saying, Tamara, was that, all of our congressmen and senators agreed that there would probably have to be review and modifications to the agreement, and none of them have really had time to dig into it in any detail yet. But I'm sure that they will, and I'm hopeful that they'll all do the right thing.
Absolutely. And it wasn't just the Iowans who were there. Let's let our listeners know, and I want to get to the 3 other talking points, but let's let our listeners know, CUFI, International Citizens United for Israel, was having their 10-year conference. They're decades strong now, and 5,000 people came from all over, from the United Kingdom. Was it Australia that folks were there to attend this conference?
Yeah, they were from all over the world, the majority from the United States. But, the Lord is alerting his people. He's sounding the alarm for what's taking place in the Mideast. And the Lord is giving us signs to begin to pray more earnestly, perhaps, than we've ever prayed. Psalm 122:6 says that we are to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. And we come here to Washington, D.C. every year looking for peace, not looking for war, but looking for peace. And we will continue to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. We will continue to do everything we can to prevent World War III. And if Iran gets nuclear weapons, it will be the beginning of World War III. So when we come here to Washington, D.C., I believe that is our heavenly calling, to be here to prevent World War III and to pray for the peace of Jerusalem.
Absolutely. And your wife has one of the best talking points on this deal with Iran, the concern that no one has ever asked Iran to stop or about the terrorism, the international terrorism. There's no reason to end sanctions imposed upon Iran because it's support of terror. So we've got 2 different sets of sanctions here. We've got sanctions on the nuclearization, but there are other sanctions on Iran concerning terror. And so terrorism. So we don't want to confuse those to help our listeners break it down. We're asking, at the very least, first off, we don't want a deal. A bad deal is worse. No deal is better than a bad deal. But
nuclear agreement.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can give these grandkids back if you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We can help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah! If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Hi, I'm J. Michael McCoy, and about 20 years ago, I went to a used car salesman by the name of John Hewitt. He had a little shop over there on North 2nd Avenue called John's Auto Sales, and I bought a car. I found that experience to be one that I had never had before from a used car salesman. He was honest, he was dependable, he had integrity, and he did what he said he was going to do. Well, over the years, between my kids and grandkids, I purchased 7 vehicles from John's Auto Sales. And last month, I asked him to be a sponsor. I can tell you about their huge selection. I can tell you about their years of experience. I can tell you about their honest integrity. But all I really need to tell you is that I bought 7 cars, and you can trust them. John's Auto Sales, 5435 2nd Avenue, Des Moines.
You need a good ride when you hit the trail. Trust the man with the cars, and he goes by the name of Big John. Big John. Big John.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Welcome back to Truth for Our Time with your host, Tamara Scott.
And thanks for staying tuned with us. I so appreciate the loyalty of my listeners texting in and telling me it's coming across okay. I appreciate that very much as we travel this road. We're on location here in Washington, D.C., coming to you from the Concerned Women for America live, Concerned Women for America studios live. And Tom McGovern is my guest, and he is on the move as well, traveling through an airport. So imagine that hectic travel, and here he is, good enough to come on and give us information because this is important. Yesterday, our Secretary of State signed away America as far as I'm concerned. He put us in a very dangerous position, and now it's up to our U.S. Senate and our Congress to put a stop to what a bad administration or the bad work that administration would do in putting us in harm's way by trusting someone who's proven they are not trustworthy. Tom, thank you for staying tuned with us.
You're welcome. Still here.
Thank you. I so appreciate it. And I know you're on a busy travel schedule, so if you have to run, let me know. But let's get through these last 3 talking points so that those folks who are listening and hearing about this can know what to say to their neighbors and to say to the neighbors over the backyard fence, the coworker over the water cooler. People just don't understand, and they want to know what's being done on a national level that affects and impacts them at home. That 4th talking point, the sanction relief.
Yes, we are pleased that in the agreement itself, the administration is standing tough against Iran's demands and the arms embargo against it. which we believe is a good thing. The arms embargo was imposed because of Iran's support for international terrorism, and it has nothing to do with Iran's nuclear program. So the arms embargo must remain in place until Iran stops supporting terror. So that was not brought up in the agreement, which is a good thing. We're pleased that the administration did not give up on the arms embargo.
And we don't want them to.
No, we don't. Absolutely not.
And the sixth talking point, dealing with the terms, the timing.
Yeah, that is a real concern of ours because basically it's saying that they would enable Iran to become a nuclear power with the full blessing of the entire international community in as little as 10 to 15 years, depending on what is finalized in the agreement. And basically, if the nuclear Iran is an unacceptable threat today, then absent any kind of regime change, it will continue to be an unacceptable threat a decade from now. An agreement must deny Iran a bomb. And merely postponing the day of reckoning is not negotiable.
It just doesn't make any sense.
Right. Yeah, slowing down this problem isn't eliminating the risk. And we feel strongly, as we have for almost every year that we've come to Washington, D.C., when we meet with our representatives, we have always talked about eliminating nuclear capabilities, not just sanctions and things of that nature, but eliminating Iran's nuclear capabilities is the ultimate goal. Because being the largest sponsor of state terrorism, our concern is that every radical group would have access to nuclear weapons. And 10 years from now, my oldest grandchild will be 17 years old. I don't want her coming in to a world where Iran has nuclear capabilities. I want her to be able to live free of that kind of fear and that kind of intimidation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Tom McGovern has been my guest. He is with CUFI, CUFI.org, CUFI. They are Citizens United for Israel. And Tom is the state director in Iowa, but there are directors all over the country, and as we said, even in different countries now. So hop online, check them out. And if you want to get involved, certainly follow online. Tom will be there in Iowa. I am joining him at a little bit different capacity. Gary Bauer will be working as a C4 to help put some of this information we have into to a little bit more force politically to make a difference and to help just keep a more peaceable time, as we say, pray for peace in Israel, but to protect Israel and to protect America, too. This is what we need to understand. You're not just protecting Israel, you're protecting America. As we learned in the conference, Tom, they call Israel the small Satan, and they call America the big Satan, and they're not going to stop. Bullies they're never consumed. The Bible talks about some things that are just never, there's never enough, and they'll not stop until they have total and complete control. And again, this is not all Iranian. Tom and I and his lovely wife, Kate, had a wonderful conversation with a delightful individual we've met from Iran. Just lovely. But
yeah,
she too understood. Go ahead, Tom.
Our hope and prayer, Tamara, is that the Iranian people would be set free from their oppressive leaders. Our prayer is that they would not be oppressed by their government. And they would be free to live and move after being, just as we are here in the United States.
Yes, and she agreed with us on the oppressive leadership. Tom McGovern, thank you so much for joining me today on a moment's notice, on the fly. I appreciate it very much. And safe travels with you and your wife, Kate. We'll see you when we get back in the state working for Citizens United for Israel.
God bless you, Tamara. It's been fun. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. CUFI, Citizens United for Israel. You can find more information online. We're going to switch gears a little bit, and yet it's still an interest of our family. It's all connected, and I think that's what we try and explain to you on the show. We help you connect the dots when the headlines hit home. If your family's not safe, if you can't raise your family as you see fit, that's what our hope is. As parents, we want to be able to give what we can to our kids and do the best we have for our children. So joining me today is someone I've not met, but we talk online. We deal with the same situations and the concerns. And so Sharon Slater is joining me from Comprehensive Sexuality Education. Comprehensive Sexuality Education, or StopCSE.org. Good morning, Sharon. Sharon, are you on the line? Hello? Ryan is our producer in Iowa, and Ryan, you may have to step in and tell me if Sharon's on the line or what we can do here. I'm not getting her through.
She was on just recently. However, she just dropped off, so I'll see if I can call her again.
We just dropped her?
No, she disconnected somehow. I'll go get her, see if I can get her back on.
You're going to go round up our guests. Ryan's going to go round up our guests. In the meantime, because I'm here in Concerned Women for America studios, Sherry Brindle, their legislative assistant, the legislative director, is bringing me some headlines, which is just fantastic. So I'll just go ahead and drop onto a couple of those. Like I said, there's so much happening. It's so hard to deal with all the things that we're dealing with right now in America. But this is from lifenews.com. Shock video catches Planned Parenthood's top doctor selling body parts of aborted babies. For those of you who are hearing this on 99.3 and driving home from church, I am so sorry that this is coming to you on a Sunday afternoon. But if you're hurting, imagine how your Savior's hurting.
All right,
imagine what this says the Lord we serve and how much more we need to be dealing with these things, which is why we bring them to you. You can't fix them if you don't know about them. And if you know about them and they cause you concern, you must act on them. That's why we bring you the issues we do on this show. Sharon, we have you back on the phone.
Yes, thank you. I don't know what happened there.
Thank you so much. I explained to our listeners we've never talked on the phone really before, and so I appreciate it when guests are willing just to pop on. But I know why. It's because you have a concern. You have something that you're willing to take a stand on for the safety of your children and our children. Explain to our listeners, what is comprehensive sexuality education?
Sure. Maybe just a little background. I'm the president of Family Watch International, and we are an organization that's accredited with the United Nations. What that means is we have a right to go in and see what's happening on social issues and negotiations that are happening there constantly, both in New York and in Geneva at the UN Human Rights Council. And we've been doing this for about 15 years, monitoring negotiations and actually helping nations that are from developing countries stand up against the Western countries, even the United States, to protect their families and their family values. And one of the biggest fights that we have at the United Nations is to protect children from a worldwide movement to establish what's called comprehensive sexuality education as an international right for children that trumps the rights of parents, religious freedom rights, and so forth. This is an agenda that would allow organizations like Planned Parenthood and those that want to promote abortion and gay and lesbian rights to children to have access to children, because this would be a right for them to have. In fact, the UN rapporteur on the right to education, who's supposed to be the world's foremost expert on trying to solve educational problems in the world, gave a speech to the UN General Assembly where he said, the main problem with education in the world is not that children in poor countries don't even have an education. It's that the world's children are not receiving this comprehensive sexuality education that will teach them about eroticism and homosexuality. He mentioned that parental rights, parents and religion can be an obstacle to this education. So we are trying to raise awareness among parents in countries around the world. In the United States, there's battles over these curriculums. There's one going on right now in Hawaii. There's been some in different states. There was one in Nevada. There's one in my state of Arizona recently. It's something parents need to be aware of and look for, as the same organizations that are working internationally are working nationally and at the state and local level to get to our children. If they know that if they can raise up the next generation of children to accept gay and lesbian rights and abortion rights and even go out and promote them, they teach them to advocate for these things in public policy, then they'll largely won the social battle in our world.
So my next guest who is going to pop in a little bit is Penny Nance, the Director of Concern for America, or the President of Concern for America. But she's recently commented on the fact that, is it Oregon that is allowing sixth grade girls to have IUDs implanted without their parents' permission?
Yes, this is, part of this whole agenda is to teach children that they can have contraception, that it's an international right for them. When they fashion different statutes or policies at the school level, they'll put in tricky words like they need to have comprehensive sexuality education and access to services and reproductive health services, which would be things like the IUD, and that they have a right to confidentiality. And most policymakers aren't thinking that this confidentiality means parents won't be told. But you see, then that gives the right for organizations like Planned Parenthood and their affiliates, which is one of the largest purveyors of these services. They do sexual education, counseling, they provide contraceptives, abortions, HIV/AIDS and other STDs testing and treatment and care. It's a multi-billion-dollar business. So, yeah, someone is profiting. Someone is getting paid for putting those IUDs in these children without the knowledge and consent of their parents.
All right, we've got to go to break. Sharon, I hope you can stay with us just a little bit. We'll be to break, and we want to thank our sponsors, Christians for America, Crave. We'll be right back.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner of Service Legends, and my position is Chief Talent Officer.
I'm Nicholas Wonderscheid.
I am Bernie Hobbs.
And I'm the Service Manager.
Marketing Director and Client Relations Manager.
Everything that we do is about ensuring that we exceed your expectations.
Our clients are important to us. 100% satisfaction.
We're not just focused on heating and cooling. That's the easiest part of our job, actually, is fixing furnaces and air conditioners.
Everyone that we come in touch with, we want to improve lives.
Bottom line is, we've got our installation guarantees, 25% energy savings guarantee, comfort guarantee, temperature selection guarantee, property protection guarantee.
100% satisfaction guaranteed, fixed rate or it's free.
All of those guarantees are backed up with a 100% money-back guarantee to hold ourselves accountable to making sure that you get what you're after.
Just fixing the problem today. If they have another problem 5 days down the road, it's still fixed rate or it's free.
We use what's called straightforward pricing. Our technicians are going to give you an exact to-the-penny price on what it's going to take before they move forward with any repair. That way you know what to expect.
It's the same price every day.
No surprises.
If you get off work at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you come home, you realize that, oh, my furnace is broken. Now you need to call somebody out that night. You shouldn't have to pay more for that.
We're guaranteeing service 24/7.
We run afternoons, evenings, nights, weekends. We're staffed to work that.
Phone rings at 3 in the morning. You'll get one of our representatives answering the phone every time.
We're not sending you out to Timbuktu in some call center. It's our Service Legend team members, our mission control team.
I'll take a call anytime.
And then they answer the phones the same way during the day as they do at night.
It's a great day at your service company. How can we make you smile?
That's the only way to provide true 24-hour service.
When you're able to let somebody actually live in their home safely when they weren't able to do that before, where they don't have to stay up at night and worry about, is the heat going to come back on? Are we going to freeze the pipes? Is the baby in the room next door going to be sick because they got too cold? When you're able to help somebody overcome challenges like that, that's impacting a life. That makes a difference. I get goosebumps thinking about it.
I love the team. I love the people that I work with.
We have fun, but we work hard.
I call them my ambassadors of legendary service. If you could just envision what that is, that's who we're sending to your home.
They literally will call in, pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I want to talk to your manager. And I get on the phone, they're like, that technician that was at my house was the greatest technician ever. That's cool to me.
We want to brighten people's days.
Every person that we have going into the house has gone through an extensive background check.
Drug testing, we have a very thorough interview process that 1 out of 140 people make it through.
If we promise you something, that's what you're going to get, no matter what.
We're here when you need us to protect the safety and comfort of your family.
If you're not happy, we're gonna make it right.
If we're willing to put 100% money-back guarantee on what we do, what type of work do you think we do?
Give us a call. We're there for you 24/7, 365 days a year.
Enough said.
Welcome back to Truth for Our Time with your host, Tamara Scott.
And thanks for staying tuned. I am joining you from Washington, D.C. My thanks to Consumer Women for America for allowing me to use their studio. And thanks to our sponsors, Crave, Christians for America, Christians Reviving American Values Every Day. Appreciate their partnering with this show. And Webcast One Live Studios, Mac McCoy. And if you'd like to come along with a partner as well, check in with us at Webcast One Live. We do that task that journalists were called to do, and that's get information out there. We also come at it from a biblical perspective. If God expects you to live through it, he directs you how to do it. It's that simple. When we get ourselves in trouble, it is usually when we've fallen away from the biblical mandate. Now, I'm talking with Sharon Slater, and I thank Sharon for joining us. Sharon is in a completely other time zone. That's the beauty of today. Aren't we blessed to be able to talk with folks across the world? We've interviewed folks from Africa and everything else. But Sharon, you were talking about what's happening. Children are being taught ideologies without parents even knowing, under the guise of sex ed and confidentiality. We all think that that's a good idea until we realize we're the ones that they're keeping the news from as parents. I want to talk to you're accredited with the United Nations, as you said. And so as I just mentioned, when we fall out of the line with biblical scripture, with God's truth, our founding fathers knew it. In the either the Declaration, maybe the preamble to the Constitution, they talk about nature's law, God's law. They knew that you cannot separate yourselves from God's law or nature's law and have things still work out. So you work with the United Nations. They're not a typical biblical organization. We see many unbiblical policies coming out from the United Nations. How does that work for you?
Very good question. I don't work for the United Nations. I work within our organization works within the United Nations to expose many of the problematic policies that they are enacting or trying to enact and force onto other countries. And we help, as I said earlier, we help nations stand up against this agenda. I think I mentioned to you earlier when we weren't online that our organization is a non-religious organization. We take our positions based on social science data, what has shown to bring the best outcome to men, women, and children. And lo and behold, it is the traditional family based on marriage between a man and a woman and traditional moral values that all the studies show that when people follow these, there's better outcomes for them in all areas. So while we don't take religious positions, you will find that all the positions that we take are fairly consistent with, a biblical worldview, because natural law is such that the studies bear that out. As we work within the United Nations, we find ourselves, in many cases, helping nations stand up to my own government, the United States of America, to the European Union, to rich, wealthy countries that are using the United Nations system to force gay and lesbian and transgender and abortion rights onto the other nations of the world. I don't know how many people are aware that President Obama issued a memorandum to all of our U.S. embassies in every foreign country to make promoting gay and lesbian rights a top priority. Our country has been involved illegally because we're not supposed to, according to our federal law, promote abortion, but we are promoting the legalization of abortion and prostitution abroad, and that's how our U.S. embassies are being used. And then we wonder why many of the conservative countries are upset with us. And
Okay, hold on just a minute. We as a nation are promoting trafficking, human trafficking, prostitution in other countries?
Well, they won't say it's trafficking, even though we all know that prostitution leads to trafficking, and you can't separate the two. Our country openly is against trafficking per se, but we, in the negotiations that I have witnessed, the U.S. has been promoting and supporting language calling for the destigmatization of sex work, which is the euphemism for prostitution, and for men having sex with men. And ironically, this is in documents that are trying to stop the HIV/AIDS pandemic. In fact, we've created a documentary that exposes this whole agenda, what the U.S. is doing, what the UN is doing. It's online. It's called Cultural Imperialism, the Sexual Rights Agenda. And if you go to our website, familywatchinternational.org, and you click on the left-hand side, there's a little button for documentaries. You can see this online. You can see Hillary.
Uh-oh, we just lost her.
Oh, we just lost her, and that is so, I'm like on the edge of my seat with this information. I work in this arena, and I had not heard of our work on that. Are you trying to get her back, Ryan? While you do that, I'll repeat that for our listeners. The website was Family Watch International. I'm trying to pull it up online myself. This is incredible information. Sharon Slater is our guest, and the other organization where you can find her is stopcse.org, Stop Sexual Comprehensive Sexual Education. We know it. You know it. When you have that gut feeling something's not right, but you can't put your finger on it, so often then we're quiet. We wait back. We sit back because we just think it's only us that feels that way. The media does all they can to make you think you're the only one that feels that way. If you called your local school, often you're told you're the only one that feels that way. I've been there. When my kids were in school, a quiz came down. I called the office. Well, actually, a parent called me and said, Tamara, have you seen this quiz the kids are taking in, I think it was 4th or 5th grade. So this was years ago. This was back in the 90s. I had not. At the time, I was writing for a newspaper. She said, you need to get a hold of this quiz. So I called the school to ask about it. They denied it ever being given out. So I called the mother back. She said, no. I've got a copy of it, and I will get it to you, and it has so-and-so's name on it. It had the student's name on it. So I called the school back. They denied giving it again. I let them hang themselves, right? I set them up. I don't say, I've got this. I just follow along and see how honest they're going to be with me. The principal tells me, the guidance counselor, tells me that no, they hadn't given that quiz to anybody, any of the students. They talked about it and decided not to. And I said, then why do I have one with so-and-so's name on it? Oh, well, yes. It went to that class really because she was going to be gone. The teacher was going to be gone with a substitute. So we gave it the day before. So one class did get it. On that test, I'm not going to go into it now because Sharon's back on the line and I want to get back to her. But the questions were not questions 4th, 5th graders should be dealing with. I would have never known about it. And when I called the school, first off, they denied giving it, and then they told me I was the only one who felt that way. I put the call out. I knew that was not true from the parents who were calling me simply because I was a newspaper reporter. In 2 days, we had 30 parents, dads, businessmen, moms, bringing their kids, taking time off of work to join us and find out what was really going on. 30 parents within 48 hours because they cared, because they had heard about it. So when you think you're the only one that feels that way, understand you're probably not. At the same time, God may be pricking your spirit to take notice, to take action. Thank heaven, Jonathan Hagee took action, and we now have CUFI, who was there yesterday at the Capitol when that Iranian deal came down to talk with their legislators. So I'm talking with Sharon Slater. She's back on the phone, and I want to get back to her. We're going to have to go to break here, too. Sharon, I think our time is probably going to be cut short. Will you come back and join me another time?
Yes. I would also tell people to go to comprehensivesexualityeducation.org, where they can get the proof of, like, even how the World Health Organization is teaching children from 0 to 4 promote masturbation. It's this whole agenda that people really need to understand, and there are tools there for parents to fight this education in their schools.
Sharon, stay online during the break, and we'll check and see what we'll confirm. Since we're on remote, sorry, listeners, we're handling some of this out front of everybody. We'll see if our guest is ready to go. Our next guest is ready to go. Otherwise, we may be able to continue. So we'll check this out during the break. Listeners, come back, whoever it is, it'll be good information you need.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can return the grandkids, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We'll help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids? Yeah!
If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Hi, I'm J. Michael McCoy, and about 20 years ago, I went to a used car salesman by the name of John Hewitt. He had a little shop over there on North 2nd Avenue called John's Auto Sales, and I bought a car. I found that experience to be one that I had never had before from a used car salesman. He was honest, he was dependable, he had integrity, and he did what he said he was going to do. Well, over the years, between my kids and grandkids, I purchased 7 vehicles from John's Auto Sales. And last month, I asked him to be a sponsor. I can tell you about their huge selection. I can tell you about their years of experience. I can tell you about their honest integrity. But all I really need to tell you is that I bought 7 cars, and you can trust them. John's Auto Sales, 5435 2nd Avenue, Des Moines.
You need a good ride when you hit the trail. Trust the man with the cars, and he goes by the name of Big John. Big John. Big John.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Welcome back to Truth for Our Time with your host, Tamara Scott.
And thanks for staying tuned. Thank you for all my faithful, loyal listeners. And if you want to watch the show live today, it is audio only because we're on remote location. Thanks to Concerned Women for America for allowing us to use their studios. And for those of you who want archives, those are always available at Tamara Scott Live. Actually, TamaraScott.com. Ryan, our producer, is amazing. just need to call him Sir Ryan. He's got TamaraScott.com up and running. And my thanks to him for doing that. You can find the archives to our shows there. So thank you, Ryan, for getting that going. We've been talking with Sharon Slater, talking about the issues that are facing families. It can be overwhelming. But one of those groups, one of those organizations started by a mom who realized the dangers that were taking place decades ago, who stood up, who, as I was telling you earlier, when you feel something in your spirit, when you feel it in your gut, maybe you're the one who needs to take action. Don't wait for somebody else. Maybe you're the one. Thankfully, Beverly LaHaye did that, I think, in the late 80s. And because of it, we now have Concerned Women for America, a nation strong of women and men handling these situations. Joining me now is Penny Nance, the president of Concerned Women for America. Thank you, Penny, for taking time out to join me.
Well, it's an honor to be with you, Tamara, and I enjoyed what you were saying. You know, I talk a lot about what you were just saying about us being the Esthers of this generation. You know, the Lord is looking for those women that are willing to, you know, clear their throats and lean in and have the hard conversations and give the truth. And so I appreciate that you're helping to equip women to do just that.
Absolutely. And Concerned Women for America. Was it 89 that Beverly LaHaye really brought this organization into being?
In the late 70s. So we're looking at about 35 years now. Yeah. So she started the organization in response to, you know, the burning legal and policy question of the day, which was the ERA, you know, a policy that sounded good. Everything can be against equal rights, but would have drastically changed law at the time and taken away the ability of states to limit abortions in any way. And, various and sundry policy changes would have occurred because of it. And it took, the women standing up against women who were pretending to represent all women. That's really what got her started. She got tired of hearing the feminists, the radical feminists at the time, saying they spoke for American women. She said, wait a minute, you don't speak for me. And they still don't speak for us. We are a 500,000 member strong women's organization all over this country who are standing up for the family, standing up for religious liberty and for conservative values of this day.
And that is such a blessing. So to our listeners who might be hearing the things we've talked about today, whether it's the Iranian bill, whether it's the sex ed, the IUDs that they're pushing in sixth grade girls without parents' permission, the UN that we were talking about with our guest last segment, thankfully, Concern Women for America is involved in almost all those arenas, Penny. I think that's why I stay with the organization. I should have known 79. I think I did know 79. Sorry, I didn't get that right. But as state director for Iowa, I should have known that. But I think the reason I stay with this organization is because we deal with so many of those issues. Our state sovereignty. Did I just see that we're changing one of our phrasing on our sovereignty issue?
We are adding in issues, all the time that are whatever's kind of bubbling up within the framework of our 7 core issues. And I think we did add in some language dealing with Sharia law, maybe what you're referring to in our last board meeting, because, we are seeing, just this proliferation of violence against women based on radical Islam. I mean, it's still happening. We're seeing forced marriages happening here on our own shores, and we don't really have adequate state policy to address that because people don't really understand yet it's happening. So we've got to really work with law enforcement, help them to recognize it when these girls are being beaten and forced into marrying a relative or a much older man. Against it. This is not an arranged marriage, you understand. This is a forced marriage. And it's certainly a violation of their civil rights and certainly violent and illegal. And so we're really trying to work with states to help them understand what's going on.
And for our listeners, I know in Iowa we've been talking about Sharia law, probably 5 or 6 years. Concern Women for America was probably one of the first organizations to have brochures explaining Sharia law and its impact because of our focus on women. Although, Penny, I have to say what I love about our organization is you see it, I see it. In these political cycles, everybody wants to isolate part of our division in this country. They want to isolate us in voting blocks and talk about women's issues. Tell me an issue that's not a woman's issue.
Right. All of those issues, right? We are we're the healthcare decider, for lack of a better word, for the family. 80% of healthcare decisions in a family is made by a woman. She's often choosing not just for her children, she's encouraging her husband to make good decisions, and then her parents and sometimes her grandparents are depending on her to help them and help them to make good and thoughtful healthcare decisions and choices. Our pocketbook issues, it's usually statistically, it is the woman who sits down at the kitchen table every month with her stack of bills and her checkbook and makes the decision on what gets paid and, what needs to be shifted next month and what we can afford to do and can't afford to do as a family. So the fiscal issues of this country weigh heavily on American women. And so we have a lot to say about those issues, and we're empowering our members to do that.
All right. And so I thank you, Penny, for joining me just these last couple of minutes of the show. And thank you for letting me borrow your studio today. It's really nice to have a place to land.
Anytime. Hey, Tamara, we are so proud of you and of all of our state leaders and volunteers across the country. We have 400 chapters and 36 state directors, and you are doing a wonderful job in Iowa. We love our Iowa members and are just grateful for all the good work you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate that so much. I appreciate the kind words. But you hit that with our state directors. I am so impressed. I remember coming to our seminars and our conferences, and I would leave so encouraged and empowered, and yet I would feel like so challenged by the women. We have great state directors, and
we really do. And our Young Women for America leaders, we've got 20 college chapters now, and I got to tell you, man, on a day when you're feeling low and feeling all alone, go talk to some of these college leaders. They will reinvigorate you and inspire you, because this is the next generation of women we're bringing up and bringing along, and they are so thoughtful and out front on the life issue. I couldn't be prouder of all of our women.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because as we're talking about all the issues we're facing, there are things coming at us so quickly now, whether it's a national security, whether it's terrorist threats, whether it's our own government possibly listening into our phone calls, whatever it is. People are just doing everything they can to make ends meet, to get the kids where they need to be dropped off, to get the bills paid, and it's a little bit overwhelming. But you mentioned those college chapters, and boy, if that is not our hope. That is vision, that is foresight, and I think CWA, CUFI is talking about their groups that's on the campuses as well. This is training, mentoring the next generation. That will be, Penny, what prolongs our being.
Oh, absolutely. Listen, we left it too long, frankly. The women's studies programs, hundreds of millions of dollars have been poured into those. There are 2,500 four-year colleges around this country. My goal is for there to be a Young Women for America chapter in every single one of those campuses. And we are working diligently to build. We invite your listeners to join us in that effort and help us to be strategic about the next generation of conservative women.
All right, we're out of time. Thank you for listening to Penny Nance with Concerned Women for America. You can find us at CWFA.org. You've been encouraged. Never be complacent.